part of myself I left so far behind. No place for her inside my mind. She had been battered and broken to the core. She had decided she didn't want to fight anymore. She didn't have the chance to fight back then. She wasn't strong enough, so she had to take it in. She took all the pain the others couldn't bear. She was beaten to the ground, and I left her there. She gave up her power in order to survive, but now she's back, and I am alive.
All right, so for those that have chosen to venture on, here we are. So now we're coming into, we've gone into our who and our what on a pretty deep level. And so now we are venturing into where. Where are we? And so when you get into meditation, sometimes you can actually forget, oh, that's right, we're on Earth, okay? And depending where you are on Earth, sometimes too, you can be like, where am I? Oh, that's right, I'm on Earth. And so these times you're on Earth. Right, so we're here, we're on Earth, and again, instead of the escaping plan or the underlying, how can when can I get out of here? It's really like embracing this life and these times, and knowing that there's absolutely the things that are coming through you in service to others in these times. So Earthlings have a physical sense perception, and they have a spiritual or a higher sense perception, and also a higher heart perception. Right? So we're all, if you're born in a physical form, there's all kinds of dynamics and potentials and going on, and that starts all kinds of conversations, and oh my goodness, the amount of things that we can have reflected to us. But it's really a matter of, again, the perspective of it. And in the perspective, in the, the context of it, in the context of you being the spiritual being, having the human experience, but also having a sense of purpose, right? That this what is there that's assisting you in bringing this gift out to others, in remembering who you are, and then the big, why am I here now, and how that comes out, right? There can be so many distractions. So sometimes something will come in and it will reflect something, and it will help you at that time, maybe to have a clarity, but a lot of things can be very superfluous, and even a distraction from, and an avoidance of the things that are not so comfortable on those paths, as we're coming out in this space, in this the truth of our being, seeing through a glass darkly, right? That would be sort of the victim mode. Everything looks dark, everything looks black, and there's a dimension too where it's where you're also, though, sometimes it's also where you're seeing what's happening in those levels. Through rose-colored glasses, that can be more of an avoidance of those levels. So if you're seeing everything that's dark, everything that's bad, nothing looks, it's never going to make it. This is wrong. That's wrong. Everything's wrong with everyone, everywhere, every time. And then you can swing to the rose-colored glasses where, I don't want to see anything wrong at all, almost like it's got cooties and it's going to get me if it touches me. So then, when you're seeing through the heart, you're seeing through the space of compassion, right? Through a place of love. And even those things that are very dark, you see them potentially, especially through the eyes of the soul as well. You see the light that's within those things that appear dark or that appear limited. You start to see the potential in things because you've seen it and it's coming out in yourself, in your own being, and you start to see that reflected. So then you can really be all at once, be in all four of those spaces and understanding. But just right now, you can notice right now, where do you primarily see the world from? Right? And is there any attachment to only being in that space, or to thinking that it's the best space to be? Right? So the victim part, or that first level part, going back to that chart, through a glass darkly, you could say, well, I want to know what's really going on, and I don't want to be duped, and I don't want to, I don't want to get in some space where I'm just seeing the light and I'm not recognizing everything, all the bad. But then there's a part of it where that can be a hindrance, where if there's so much focus on that, and I don't want anyone to take me, and there's a lot of unconscious beliefs about life and about what happens if you're not on guard every second, and if you're how you can be taken and taken advantage of. So when you're in rose colored, or even when you're in the heart, even when you're in the soul, you can be taken advantage of, right? These things happen, and yet it's like, we all have free will. That the realization that has eventually come in this way is that everyone has free will, and you just show up as you're showing up, and you do what you are called to do. You do what you can do, and eventually at the end of the day, it does all. You're not in control, and that there is something greater that is working through all of it and all things. And that seeing, if you notice where you are, if you're noticing there's anything you're not wanting to see, that or that you're attached to a certain part, even as an identity, as like, I only see it through this space, right? You just want to be aware of different levels. So then there's a living grace, right? There's blind. And now I see, those are such good times when we come into a space where, where it might have been a long cycle of something, a karmic clearing, where things have been clearing out, where things have been getting more, what's really happening, and or just in a larger cycle too, in a collective, now I can see. Yes, there's always a great thing. So this whole thing of what you're seeing, where you're seeing from, and the rose-colored glasses, right? It can be this spiritual ego that we talked a little bit about before, where there's a potential for the spiritual escapism route without the divine, the divine heart, the compassionate heart, and the part that's very aware of what's happening here on the planet. And it's very aware that you have either, you can look at it as a role to play, or a dharma to be lived, and the gift to be expressed in service to others. How important this is to see if there's anything inside of you that is trying to escape that, and to go into, either into a place where I just want to, when I get out of here, I'm going there. And that actually more of your creative energy or intention would be involved in that. Like, I'm escaping the wheel. I'm going to get out. I'm just going to do what I do. But the real place is not here. Again, ascension into fifth dimension. There has been so much in many different traditions and things about this earth being the lesser place. And in the feminine heart and on the heart of creation, this is heaven. Now, what if, and just to explore it for a moment, that was true? There was nowhere else you were going to go, right? There was nowhere else to get to. It was that this was it. And is there any way that you would be living your life differently? Or any way that you've been holding a situation or a circumstance, especially in regards to what you believe you're capable of and what you're here for, your purpose or any gifts that you're using. What if this is it? Right. So the part that can be invested in this, I'm just doing things here so that later on I can get to the real place. And that can really block the life energy from fully living, right? From fully engaging in this space. So then we have the when of things. And we have to go to our next slide here. And let me see if it's actually, we're going to change it. Oh, we are. See if we can. Okay, so when are you? Again, doesn't really make sense in the context of English and that space. So it's who are you, right? And then what are you, going into that expanded space? Where are you, right? Are you in your heart right now in this moment? Even in this moment, just taking a moment to tune in. Where are you, right? In the physical world, where are you? Getting the bearings on the physical level. And then on the other level, emotionally. Let's go in emotionally. Where are you? Right? Is there anything that's there emotionally that's coming forward? Any right? Any irritation? You're really in a pretty good mood and things are going, or things are there emotionally? Any sadness? Any anxiety? Any anger? Any feelings? Mentally, where are you? So you're probably listening to the words. Are you somewhere else? Are you trying to not think about something maybe that's happening or that's happened or that's present mentally? Where are you? All right, as your mind keeps going back to or in with something, even as you're trying to focus on this, it's like just noticing mentally, right? Where's that mental body and the thoughts? Yeah. And so then what sometimes there's not always the availability, where are you in the divine heart? So that divine heart, the essence of being, and that space of absolute compassion and divine love, right? And then the soul, that the pure light of being, right? This is also where you are. It's also where you are. But the recognition of that and the revelation of that, where you are, then it comes back to then the what you are and who you are. All of that's tied together. So now, when are you? Right? So this, you can get a sense of, well, I was born in this year, and right now, right, we're in this year, and currently this is being recorded in 2021, the beginning of 2021, and you are here during a time of transition on planet Earth. It's a transitory time, and a lot of, there's again, a lot of beliefs around things, to like, well, this is just like any other time, there's nothing special about this time. And if you're watching this, and if you do have a sense, you probably really already know that this is not an ordinary time. These are times that have been said there would be tremendous turmoil and tremendous change, as well as opportunity for tremendous spiritual transformation, right? But I think what also gets confused is it's not a given. It's not just, oh, it's just going to happen. And we're in these times where it's just going to happen. And that's not true. It's the same kind of thing of, wow, I'm going to spiritually wake up. It's like that has to really be a focus and a really focused intention, and there's action taken on it. And so for this global transformation to happen, which is a spiritual transformation, this golden ages that's been prophecy predicted by all kinds, it has a lot to do with the feminine consciousness, the women, and a lot that hasn't been recognized, or as the weaker sex, or just the way the dynamics have been going. That's a huge part of this transition. And then it has a lot to do with each individual's commitment to their own spiritual transformational process. And then that mirrors in the outside, and that it includes the earth. It's not so much of a different belief system where it's, man is just here to dominate and have dominion over the earth. It's very much connected to everything. So this is very much part of the living heaven and what's coming through in this work. So when are you? So time is a big part of creation. And the environment, earth mission, plus your unique, your love, right? Your compassion for humanity, for others around you. And then the ability to come into that inner merging and that yoga intention of that union inside of yourself with your soul and your ordinary consciousness equals your unique dharma based, your unique dharma blossomed, right? So then that begins to activate your unique dharma coming forward, your unique soul gift, equals, the expression of that equals heaven on earth. This is not a scientific formula, I guess I have to say, but so this is though that time, this is really important, that time is an element of creation. So knowing when you are, knowing what stage you are in this place of transformation, knowing really, the timing of things, and the ego can really use that to be in a place of, well, it's not time yet. It's just not time yet for me. And I can say that for like 50 years. It'll never be time from that ego's point of view for you to do something that's really uncomfortable and that's really coming through. It's like, just go do that. It's like, but what if this happens, and what if that happens, and what if they don't like me, and what if this goes wrong, and what if that energy doesn't show up in that space, and what if I can't, and what? So there's a continual and constant engagement, and this is where your love comes in, right? And this is also where it's that bigger than you, and that space that it's so much more than what you can think about, like I'm capable of or worthy of, or I have that ability, or because you oftentimes you won't. And that's the whole point. And so when that deeper essence in you, the soul gift, starts to open up and starts to blossom, there is the potential for that golden ages to come in, right? So coming attraction. Now, this is something that had been seen in, in a, I'm not even sure how to describe it, in a conversation with the sun and clouds and this earth mother that's opened up after the Shaktipeeth initiation. And there's questions being asked, and a lot of times there is feedback from everything. But and then essentially from different elements of lightning. I was having a conversation with lightning a few weeks ago, and several times that's happened. And so it's gone way beyond animal communication that's happening sometimes, where the animals come in and they bring messages or different things. It's just gone into, there's 4 different, when the wind comes in, when there's a certain breeze or a certain wind, there's literally 4 different voices or aspects of wind, that there's the ability to discern which, oh, that's that aspect of the wind, oh, that's who's speaking. And right, one of them is Hanuman, son of the wind, and another one is the mother herself. And then Rumi actually speaks, the breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you, don't go back to sleep. And then there is there's one other that I can't even remember right now. So there's 4 though. And so I remember it when it comes and say, oh, that's right, that's you, hello. And it comes in a very specific moment. In other words, it's something that I'm thinking, it's something that's reflecting, it's something that's coming out. And then that wind will come in as a, and it can be sometimes a very strong wind, a huge gust of wind, will come in at times, sometimes. And so these again, the things that can come in the form of cities and in the form of these things, you just don't know. You might have something happen where maybe no one's even heard of it before. So, and it's going to be, it feels like more of these coming out as the feminine begins to come in. It's going to be a much less linear, logical living process that we've been in, which is needed right now, because it's gotten so linear, where there can be so much control, that the ability for life to even be present, some of the schooling and education, right, and some of the planning doesn't really leave open much for anything else. So this conversation was happening with the clouds and the sun, and it was confirming something that was coming through. So this event of epic spiritual proportions, it's still coming in, that it's in the year of 2022. And if you have heard in the Mahabharata, in different scriptures, and actually if David Wilcock has work out, you can, I didn't put any links on here for that, but you can look up his work in terms of the Samvartika fires. And that's what it's referred to in the Hindu scripture, and it's referred to, though, in the Bible and in the Quran in different ways And then in other traditions, there's knowing that something is coming, where there is wreaths. Now, how this describes it is wreaths of lightning, strange clouds accompanying the lightning. Right? These fires born of his energy resembled in effulgence the lightning that flashes amid clouds. Verily, it seemed as if 1,000 suns rose there, filling every side with a dazzling splendor. The energy of the Supreme Lord looked like the Samvartika fire, which destroys all creatures at the end of the Yuga. So there's been not just this, but there's been that if you were in a particular place underground, the Hopi prophecy was the good red road was the stairs going down, and then you would be safe, right? It destroys all the creatures that are going to be up on top. So that's one way to read this and interpret it. And another way, though, see, there's also the end times. That's a simultaneous sort of prophecy and prediction in these times of revelation. And this, if you've seen pictures or in media where literally people are just going to be poof, disappearing. They're standing right next to you. And this is the whole thing about being left behind, and you want to be in the ascension group. So there's been so much that has been coming in these times. And again, the mind getting a hold of it, and some of the things that go around in the spiritual circles, and especially in this last year of sort of hearing things about, wow, we've made it and we're already there. We've crossed over and we're in this place. And I just couldn't figure it out for the life of me. Like, what are people talking about? That we're here and that we've made it and that it's these times. And all I have to do to know that it's not the golden ages and it's not the golden times and that we have not crossed over. One thing I do get that this is an event that you're not going to really be able to miss. It's not just going to be a sun flare that doesn't feel good, or it's going to be, some kind of thing that happens, and then some people sometimes will get a hold of it and go like, oh, that must have been it. I think it's going to be an unmistakable event, and that it's going to have, like the big thing that was around the year 2000, when people were expecting the entire internet to crash, or this huge thing that was supposed to happen, and then that didn't happen in that way. But it's more along those lines, and I'm not saying that it's going to take out even that internet part of things. Not even saying that, but it's more of something that's affecting our DNA. Now, something else that came to me is you don't really want to be hiding underneath. First of all, the hiding thing is not the good red road. Scattering like little scared animals and hiding in a hole. That is not the good red road that talks about. It actually talks about the ability to drop into, I believe, an interdimensional portal where you can literally go into another dimension, and that will be a protective space. There's also, though, something that came in around the DNA being activated by this light. And that and to go on into this next phase and space, that you would want to have this DNA activated. So there's no absolute, no matter who you talk to, there's no, and they might be out there saying this is the answer and you have to do this and you better do that, and preparing for it in a way, but there's no definitive absolute answer. And that's the protection of the mother, because it's like when the planning mind and the ego that would just go nuts with information like this, and so divine mother, right, creation, it's really is a sense of if something comes to you to do, you do that, and being present with things, doing what you can, believing in what you believe in your heart, and being prepared for at any moment, right? At any moment. And so this, again, that it gives the part of ourselves that would only do something if it's to try to avoid pain, or to try to be in with the right thing, that instead you're again, what's true. We'll just come back to that forever and ever and ever. Just that's sort of just the foundational parts of this. And so that there is something coming, and that, if there is a way for you to prepare for it, then that is something you want to be looking at and aware of, right? That in these times that have been prophecy, there's a lot of like intense things around these times, that souls would be lost, that the battle for souls be going on. And I do have a sense that is what's happening, only it's happening on more subtle levels, and possibly in ways that we didn't expect and foresee. And one of these ways is you really don't want to be trying to check out in these times. If anything, you just want to be more deeply engaged in life. And there's something, called karma yoga, where you're just in service, and you're not personally getting things out of that. And another way of working within that is developing your consciousness and bringing forward your gift in service to others. So I brought this in again because it said it would destroy all creatures. And I just thought it was funny little synchronicity here that she's not a creature. So she's creator. And maybe point two, like when you're in creator consciousness, right? That you, when you're in that radiance and that light, the light isn't going to destroy light, and so again, the more you're in a space of knowing who you are and of doing this that's right for you, and that's really where you're really moving into a higher space. It's just, the consciousness is also the protection. And then you're trusting whatever's happening. And if you're moving somewhere, you're moving somewhere. If you're dropping down underneath, you're dropping down. But to do things really out of fear, and from a place of this sort of the energy that can get into the collective consciousness, where you're scrambling around, and it's like almost like the dog eat dog, there's only so much room in that tunnel underneath. You don't really want to be in that space, right? You want to be in the place where you're just, I know who I am, I know why I'm here, continue on. and to be engaged fully in this life. And so what if something more is happening through and as us in these times, as many of us have known and experienced it has, but in very specific ways according to our Dharma, right? And this is another point, that it's not a dogmatic one size fits all, and it's also not something that you want to necessarily come into a box of like, this is what I'm working on, and this is the I'm working in a little module here, rather than really being in conversation with life itself. And that is a big part of the Living Beyond Belief book. It's in conversation with life itself, and your soul and your heart, what you're authentically feeling, what's really happening, and different questions and different things and exercises to be in that space of having those inner remembrances and that inner opening. So in very specific ways, there's a lot going on with lightning besides conversations with lightning, and I did put that in 2020, and that was it. The tea ritual, it did have something to do with tea from Dharamsala and the four sons. It was really profound. So Chinnamasta, one of the forms of Kali, coming through in Mallorca, Spain, and in that there's so much lightning all night long, and a big storm. And someone that had lived there for a long time, a few decades, I believe at least, said had never experienced that kind of lightning. I don't think I have either, for it to go all night long. And there was a ceremony done, and there was the dance that was done in the grove there. Again, it was done a day or two before, I believe, but it was right around that, the intentional field to just create in harmony with life, and if anything needs to be cleared, and to bring in energy. So this is how, that's another one of the gifts of really connecting to the earth. And when the earth receives a ceremony, right, when you're doing anything like that, you will absolutely know. She will send you, a deer will walk up, or a bird just right in front of you. It won't be like, well, there's a bird way over, 10 miles away. That must be the sign, It'll be a very pronounced sign where you really, really have, and then you're working with forces of creation, and it's not just your ego. And on that note, when you're going into nature, and when you're really connecting with those elements and beings, if you're going in from your ego space, right? I mean, you can go on nature hikes, right? You can, of course, connect in with that. But when you're going in there of you're going to be doing something, it can actually be harmful and disruptive to the elementals and to the devas in that area. If there's any piece of it, that's ego. So again, just things to be aware of, right? That aren't usually even, I don't really hear it said a lot. I don't really hear it taught a lot, that only if she calls you, only if they truly call you to go in, otherwise you can actually either chase them away or piss them off. And that's something you really don't want to do either. And they can, it's like anyone. You're going into their space in their home, and then you're like, I'm going to fix you. I'm going to help you. And they're like, you don't even know us. No, I'm going to help you. And it's like, no, you haven't even asked what we need, and so it's that kind of thing that's very intrusive, very invasive, and very disrespectful. So there's a whole lot going in these different fields, and it's just something to be aware of. So this wasn't lightning, but it was the leg burned within seconds. And this, again, the sun and the different things that are changing, literally had a burn mark there. More recently, I had a burn from lighting something where the black little tar-like substance, it was completely burned into my finger, and then just, I can't remember if it was an hour or 2 hours later, it was totally healed. So those things happening, and I've heard other people, share those kinds of things where you're not so much in the normal cause and effect relationship with life anymore. Different things are happening. A pretty significant the hailstorm in Bolivia, that was at Tiwanaku and Pumapuku. If you're familiar with those sacred sites, and it hadn't even had the first rainstorm yet, and it hailed right on the last note of what was being shared. The thunder came, and then it hailed. And so hail also has been, it's come in several times, and it came in during that lightning storm. There's video of that in Mallorca. It was hailing that night also. So again, these you just have a pure intention, and you're just here to be of service, and the cities will come, and they're used, really just only in service to the space that they've come from, right? And you really are being mindful, and not to let yourself get a hold of them, where they become, I'm going to use these now for what I think needs to be done, or in any other way than in the pure space that they've come from, through grace. A lot of humility in this unfolding. So there is something called the Akashic Records. If you've heard of those, it's a place, a spiritual library, I guess you could say, where everything from every birth, everyone is there, all the records of everything. And it's a space where people use to specifically go in a certain way to obtain information. And I know I've been there, and a lot of time, I'm probably, some of the time, half the time, all the time there in some ways. Maybe a part of me is always probably there. But anyways, I never specifically went in that directive way until just, it was the year before last at a meeting. And what immediately came forward was a sword of truth. And I'm holding this just giant sword, and people that are chained to a ball, and it was just going around with the sword, and this, again, this sword of truth, which the truth, again, not always easy, fun to hear, but there's a freedom that can come, especially in those things that we don't want to hear. So just kind of throwing that in to bring it in again, this theme of truth being the foundational elements of things. And so the Shaktipita temple was where the initiation, the puja really was what it was, but it was a long puja, and my goodness, it just, the night before is actually when some things started. It really did set off some things on potentially a few different things happening. So, and it's the risks of the goddess. There's 52 of these temples, and different body parts represent, or each temple represents different body parts. And these are the risks of the goddess. And it is all about the work in the world. And there was something about being uncuffed, right? Unchained, and the entire field expanding into this whole other level of the feminine. And so this is the original book cover of Living Beyond Belief. Very different than the next printers. They were really invested. I wanted to keep the same one. It was like, there's so much synchronicity and grace around this one. It was almost like, well, where we're doing it, and we want to say that we did something more, maybe that it's like, just keep it, I'll pay the same amount. Anyways, it did get changed to this. So the woman there's just a different sense of the feminine, right? There's like, she's just in the blue light. She's just, so different from this. So this is more reflective of the living heaven path, right? It's more, she's standing barefoot on the ground, right? The person that did this, they had no idea what I look like. And so people said that, wow, they really did kind of capture a little bit of your essence. And it's like, yeah, that wasn't even, they didn't even know what I look like. So there was just a lot around it. And also she's in a the pose. I mean, there's so many things about it. And that it turned into this. There's a lot of that about this when you do have the creations come out and they start to go into marketplace and other people are involved in that. Staying true to the dharma of the music. There's a lot of stories. I'm not going to go into those, but staying true to that and to not allowing the and even though it did go into a direction where it was produced in a specific way, it's, to maintain, though, it didn't completely go into a place that just really didn't feel right. And so, and this is right after I'd gotten back on the plane, came back to California, and this was Northern California on Easter morning. Sunrise had done this, the dance that came through at that time. And then this was after getting there. Now, of all the things I'm going through and everything, I mean, the energy was so strong. And again, this was part of the problem. And in the medical field and in a lot of different fields and the things that were happening. So everything fell away. Everything was, and the energy was probably, up until that point, possibly even the strongest that it was ever. And so it doesn't necessarily mean when things are, they're not going to, like a cleanse, when you're going higher and higher in vibration, the outer can definitely not, clearly match according to what our idea of living heaven, because living in the back of a car is not, that's not necessarily what will ever happen to you. I just want to really stress that. But it's also, it doesn't necessarily reflect what's really happening. And as transformation happens, you really can't control what's going on. So King James Bible here, dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Now, one of the things, now Kali was coming in, as all this was happening, this heads will roll, right? So this message is coming in from Kali, and there's a, on the right, a little bit of a representation of that. She's standing on her beloved Shiva. So there's so much symbology in these things. And again, it's like, that's not living heaven to me, right? But when you understand that again, she's bringing forward this scythe of truth, maybe more than a sword, and that the head, the severed head, it represents, the mind and the head and the ego and all the things that we think we are and all the things that we want and all the things that we're so attached to, and so it's that representation that there's more, and that the things that need to be let go of, right? So it's the ultimate blessing of awakening consciousness. It's really what the transcendence of that mind, and the power in that. Again, the power that's in the feminine, primarily unrecognized at this point, and unleashed, allowed, these different words that can come in that aren't real words. There's a lot of potential. And it does not mean that women come running out into the street with weapons. I'm sorry. That is not living heaven. That is not what we were supporting in any way. And so when this, there is a law to life. There is a sacred dharma. There is so if there's any karma to be coming out to anyone in situations and things, it's going to play out. And this was the repeating message as things were playing out, and as I was really there was a sense of betrayal. There was a lot of things going on with a lot of things, and this is also one of the things that Pandit said. Since you didn't seek revenge, you didn't seek revenge. You only do things right, and you just went higher. It's like every time you didn't reach out, or you didn't do something out of any kind of a revenge or vengeance, right? So this vengeance is mine. Like, this is karmic law. This is the order and the intelligence of the universe, and you're trusting that. You do not want to take on karma or to go into a lower space because you're trying to have revenge or get even. And so, in the space, the communication that has reached out a few times, it's happening a bit now. And it's happening from a place of recognizing the responsibility that I have in sharing truth. Again, right? It comes back to this, like, just what is true. And I have an obligation and responsibility in this position to reflect this. And if it's done in this way, I can share, I'm sensing this is what might happen, and I have no control over it, right? What I do want to say is like, if this happens, or that there is nothing in me that is wishing any ill will. And I'm feeling like I'm getting, attacked here and attacked in the heart. And it's again, in these other places, there's a lot's going on. And when you have a shadow that's been repressed, right? When you have something where you are just really attached to only being in the light, and really attached to only ever seeming to be in the light, then this shadow self can get created. And energetically, I mean, it is a profound example with the person I worked with in this last year, where it can have an energy that's coming at me, and the sensitivity and the dimensions that have opened up, to it to be a palpable experience, where I literally feel my throat closing off, or my body shaking, and the person themselves can have absolutely no awareness that it's going on in that moment, until we go in, and again the questions are asked, and then it starts to be really opened up and seen, and how important it is in these times that you not just go into the light, but also be profoundly aware of the shadow, of the part that can hide in so many ways. Or if you're just overriding it. The training that I had in the spiritual psychology class, there's a term for it. It's called spiritual bypass, right? And so anything negative, it's like, oh, I'm not negative, I'm spiritual. So there becomes a spiritual identity that starts to build, and it's a personality, a new persona is this is who I am now, right? I'm not that person. I'm the spiritual person, and this is where the spiritual ego, where we're talking about that part. And it can build up a very strong sense, and have an underlying part of it. A collective energy field has been, what I've been seeing, potentially built up in communities where it's just not okay to express anything other than, we're so spiritual. And then I've seen others where there's a lot of infighting and a lot of drama, right? So that also, it's a space to have the tools there to process those things, and to really address them where they're clearing, and then it's an authentic space. So a lot that has been feeling and reflected to me feels like it's been coming from this collective pain body shadow, where it's just, we're just going to be happy all the time, and to sort of hang out there, and not even want to see a moment that there's anything else other than that, or to project it out onto other people, whether it's politicians or whoever, celebrity, anyone in the public eye, right? Or parents. It's like, so to be able to do that work while also really addressing what's true and what's real for you, and having that honored. And so during a healing session after I got back to LA, and it was someone going in and seeing what was there, if they could see anything, if there was any dark attachments or anything that was on there. So they're doing this thing as two people, and then on the phone, and then they, at the very end, have you ever had anyone jealous or envious of you? And what immediately came, oh my goodness, I think that might be the whole entire thing right there. I think that pattern is stronger than any demons in temples, or hiding out, waiting to get on me, or any bullying in the physical. Oh my God, that is it. And they said, my gosh, we see like all of these black strings like just hanging on the bottom. It's huge. And so when you do start to connect and potentially meet someone that is a very high vibration together, And so this is the yogi, the being that we were initially connecting in that energy, and it was really opening up that Shakti inside and initiating things. And there was just an enormous amount on different levels and different sides, that it's almost like no one wanted us to be connecting for different reasons and in different spaces. At least that has definitely been my side, or everyone thought that it was just like that. That's, wow, you really kind of went down or made a mistake in that. And it's still so strong in that potential, and it's not an attachment in the way, and it's not some like, oh, it's just the whole other thing. And there's a term called twin flame, and this is a dharmic centered connection, and it literally has a tremendous divine plan around it, and the whole thing is service, right? But it's not the whole thing, but it's the whole thing is service. And so, but it's not the whole thing. It's really impossible to describe, just like the guru thing is impossible to describe from any standard and known set of in the West, what we're used to. So Romans, do not repay anyone evil for evil. Carefully consider what is right in the eyes of everybody. So the thing is, what aspect of consciousness can see what is right? So when someone would be handing out a judgment or making a decision against someone else, or having some kind of perceived control over someone else, and when any of us are in that position to be in that space, it's like, what consciousness? And what I really started to, especially in the last 6 months, having this guru chart, going through everything that's been gone through for all the years and the thousands of hours of karma yoga, sacrifice, all these kinds of things, and being true in a way that's like, it hasn't really compromised in that place. And then going through the Shakti initiation, like just to top it off, after meeting this being, it really was just, that energy was just opening up like wild. And that had already come after the non-dual awakening. So, but this was more physically, it was just another space with the feminine. And it's like, who can really see right? Like, has anyone, who's the other people that have gone through this after all? Again, the dynamics are just really big. Not to mention that just about every reader in the past has had some, most all have said something to the effect, you're here to be, almost iconic and in the space of significant leader in these times, spiritually. And the degree to the things that have been happening in the last few years, and how it's felt so blocked, and how it's felt like some of the energy is just being gone into other places, and it hasn't had access. And I'm just trying to stay, with the head above water, and the frustration of feeling like there's all these beings that are meant to be serving, and what's happening. So having to go back into the trust and being here now, and forgive them, Father, even if they knew exactly what they did, but probably not exactly, right? And so again, everything, it's all good. It's all good in the way that the universe is an intelligent universe. And let's say humanity doesn't choose to awaken at this time. Let's say the golden ages don't happen, and a much, much, much darker cycle comes in because of it. It's a choice. It's like this and what's been predicted to come in that space. And then it will naturally go for another few thousand years, or however much it is designed to, until fate comes, and then it will go into that golden age by its natural course. That's another potential. So that it needs to be chosen and really dedicated to. Again, all I have to offer at this time, there's a few things that are coming through, but if you're watching this, it's the space that's here and what's been happening and how it's been happening. So the course online, Living Beyond Belief, Experiments in Consciousness, to really choose that path. And I love to see everyone go into their full, into their full space. And there's nothing in me that's going to have an underhanded, whoa, I don't like that their gift is coming through that strongly, or that, no, that's like, oh my God, because I just see it helping others and helping the earth and helping the planet, and like, yes, let's get going. Where it's really hard is where I'm seeing it either squandered or not used or put somewhere away. And there's a lot of gratitude in this space, because there's definitely the recovery of some of the things perhaps that happened, and there's not the same level of reflections or to use that word, bullying on the outside. And my body isn't shutting down to where it feels like it's going to die every day. So yay! Again, going through it at this level, this is not like a first time I'm going, so, I know you can appreciate that. And this is not a follow the leader copycat kind of thing. So it's definitely not something that I would assume that hardly anyone really, and in fact, maybe it's happening in this to have such dynamics and such awareness where it would never happen to anyone that I would be, or that we, the ultimate, the partner that is there, that comes in, that's that's emerging and merging now as well, that just wouldn't be. That's the intention. So Earth Mother, Jai Ma, Kali Ma, cow, and the abundance of the cow and all that, there's so much in that. And so I just love that picture, because we've got Jai Ma, Kali Ma, cow in the background. So again, just part of the whole thing that happens. I usually don't know why I'm talking about these kinds of things when I'm talking about them. It doesn't really make sense to put this in an initial thing for the Living Beyond Belief class at all. But so that you can understand and appreciate the something that's developing in you, or that you might have an awareness around. So it was, when I counted it back, it was literally 24 years ago. And this date of October 22nd was rolling around. And I went, oh my gosh, this big thing is happening on October 22nd, like really big, really significant. And then it passed and nothing happened. And the next year it came around and I went, oh, that's right. It must be this year. And so that went on for 24 years. And it was actually this last year, the Pandit said, you're going to be married in October. Everything in me went, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember. And then it passed. And when those things pass, again, I still don't know what has really been lost, and how much of the energy has gotten engaged in a, in the false light place, in the collective, that really felt like it was just on me a lot, pulling things out, projecting onto me, telling stories, creating all kinds of things, having expectations that weren't necessarily in alignment at all with what I'm here for and who I am, and with what my body was going through and different things. And so that this collective, and then even the dark stuff that can still come in from different places. But then really on a larger scale for humanity. Because this wedding, it was not just a wedding that was happening like, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's so sweet. Which is really great too when it's aligned. But this was something that was on the scale for humanity. And this one, if this is a live link on this, you can go to that. This is something, if you want to go through a process, and it is a little bit of a process to go through and see this. When we were in Pushkar, and right before this temple experience happened, on this January 31st, right before, Imbolc, which is Goddess Bridget Day. There's a lot of the goddess energy in there. There was a lunar eclipse, and there was an 18-year cycle that someone was talking about to go back to the year 2000. And that it was very much connected. There was an 18-year cycle, and that particular time was going to be connected. Now, when I did it in this time, it also had I believe it was a solar eclipse or a lunar, I actually can't remember. There was an eclipse, and I did it during the time of that eclipse. And there was a link to it back into that space, to go back in and to be able to, and especially for me, and I know if you're listening, there might be pieces in there for you as well. That in these last 3 years, there, what has been happening for you, if you have been going through a significant transformation and change. And if you've had a lot of changes, to be able to go back to that 2018, and then through that, look to that whole pattern. What were you doing in year 2000? And that would be a beginning space in that 2018 from there, if that makes sense. I don't know if I describe it any better on the other recording, but you can see and try, and if that makes sense for you, there is that. So the why. Man dreams of escape or of perfecting himself, or the Earth Mother, right? We're going to try to make her perfect through biotechnology, right? Genetic manipulation of seeds, our own DNA. Now, there's things on that. Rather than doing the great work of awakening, which does open up and perfect your DNA, which does take it into a higher space, which does initiate. And of the seeds, they already know what they're doing. They know how to do it so well. Again, they're just an understanding that a lot of these things over time, they'll just be worked out and they'll just be going away. And whether the Great Mother, whether the creation, Mother Earth, has to bring in forces to create a clearing on the earth and less humans getting all involved, and whether that has to happen, or whether man really gets the message that he's not creator. Kind of a big ego there to really work out, and like, oh my God, can it ever happen where he realizes that it's really not his job to modify seeds, to genetically manipulate life. That's really not the answer. That it is a spiritual answer, right? That we're waking up, and he has become humanity, right? Has become lost without the mother. Right? There is a sense of loss without the feminine really in her full Shakti power, and it has been part of this cycle. Right? It's a man's world, very patriarchal cycle. Before this, a long time ago, there was the matriarchal cycle, and now again, the senses were really coming into this couples, and I hear a lot about, well, it's all of us. Or it's a group soul, and that can be true too. What I'm focusing on in this work, and it just because it's coming in, specifically couples. And so if that's not resonating for you at all, it doesn't have to be that you don't have to like, I'm not a couple, or I don't have a strong intention for that or a vision for that. You can still do the Living Beyond Belief book. That's not the foundation of it, but it's a big part of the Shiva Shakti and what's coming through in that dynamic with men and women. It just is, right? I can't change it or make it up or pretend it's not, or try to include everything and just lie. That's really not going to be this work, right? If you decide to come in and go further in that, that's really not, it's just kind of impossible for me to do in this space. So it's if it speaks to you, it does. And then if it doesn't, it doesn't. So don't tear up your soul contract yet. Right? So you have that responsibility to deliver your gift. right? And if you're not giving your gift, there's like anything else. It's just there are things that happen and consequences to that. So I'm just gonna go all the way here. And so we're in that why. And it really is the place, because you are here, because you are now, right? And the blood moon warrior goddess, this is something else, a new archetype coming in on the it was the same cycle of blood moons back in September of 2015. There was 4, and I believe over a 2-year period, and it matched the sequence in the times of the crucifixion in Christ. So we have been through this 2,000-year cycle, and something very significant happened in that space on that final blood moon. And I felt it coming. I did a few calls on it, and new archetypes, right? New archetypal essences, beings coming in right now. And this was one of them. And I had my clothes on, and we went to the beach to do this. A large field of drummers over on the side. So it's like, again, set up on this, like, oh, here's this another initiation piece that you're going through. And then the message is, you must go into the water. It's like the baptism. And it's like, no, I'm not dressed. And these are the places where it's, no, you must go into the water. And so I did, but this is the willingness to just be in that space. So in that space where you get the job done. I don't know what else to say. It happens, right? It happens. And so there is an element of social justice or awareness, right, on that level, and environmental justice and awareness, and heart and soul justice, right? The Dharma, the ability to live your life as it's true for your soul and your heart, and the unique way that you express in this world. So we went into the who, what, why, where, when, how. And so foundations of living heaven, right, is divine plan, divine practice, and divine patience. And so the yoga and the union with the practice, again, the alchemy practice, there's different things at different times that's going to most deeply engage you and allow that energy to come in. And my yogi counterpart is playing a tremendous role in that part of things as well. And then there's the divine plan, the soul blueprint. Again, just what is true. I do a one day, a full day session where we go completely into your soul blueprint. And then the divine patience, the divine timing. And again, the timing element of things, that spontaneous timing, even if you didn't know it was initiation day, surprise, right? You aren't always planning on those or aware of those. So if you would like to join in the 12-week adventure of the soul, and you're still listening to this, there might be a really good, strong indication that you can benefit and receive something from this, and a greater awareness of your path and your soul, and it's followed by another course and part of things, and then coming into this developing community that we're seeing happening. It's still there, it's like, okay, we're getting there. Just a lot of things that had to get done and worked out in different ways, and so would love to have you on that. So fill in the form below, if there is a form below. I assume there is, or a link, and let the magic begin. So many miracles, so much magic, and sometimes new forms of communication come in, but that lack of grammar probably is not one of them. So grateful to have you here, and lots of blessings. And I hope today you receive something, maybe just a different kind of maybe some things resonated for you. Maybe you've had similar experiences and it just confirms what you've been experiencing. And or maybe you would also like to come in and join in the class. So we'd love to have you. All right, Jaima, Shiva Shambho, and blessings on your divine adventure continuing.
I left so far behind, no place for her inside my mind. She had been battered and broken to the core. She had decided she didn't want to fight anymore. She didn't have the chance to fight back then. She wasn't strong enough, so she had to take it in. She took all the pain the others couldn't bear. She was beaten to the ground, and I left her there. She gave up her power in order to survive, but now she's back, and I'm alive. She's been there all the time, but not been seen, gathering the strength to begin again. She doesn't need to fight, she lives and walks in peace, but she needs to speak her mind so I can be free. There's an ocean of love in my new friend, and now she knows I'll never leave her again. She gave up her power in order to survive, but now she's back, and I'm alive. There's an ocean of love in my new friend, and now she knows I'll never leave her again. She gave up her power in order to survive, but now she's back, and I'm alive. She gave up her power just to stay alive. Now she's back.